Welcome to the Damascus Encounter, that program where we share with you every time special testimonies of people who have encountered Jesus and their lives were never the same again. Of course, in the Bible, we know Saul met Jesus and he became Paul, traveling on the road to Damascus. So on the program today, I have a very important personality, someone who is so especially a dear servant of God who is in the house. Will be sharing with us some of his own personal experiences, how he encountered Jesus and the change that took place in his life. So, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
I have with me Dr. Bamidele Olaore.
Yes.
So, can you tell us briefly who Israel Bamidele Olaore is?
Thank you very much. The name Israel was given to me by my grandfather on my mother's side. Okay. And then Bamidele is derived from the fact that I was born in Accra, Ghana. So my dad named me Bamidele, which is a Yoruba way of saying, come home with me from Ghana to Nigeria. And I was born in Labadi, Accra, which is a very interesting Ga-speaking community. And I grew up there at a place called Ochwen. That's where I grew up. And then we moved from Labadi to the South Labadi estates. My dad at that time worked for Advent Press, and my mom also worked for Advent Press. But in 1971, we moved back to Nigeria, fulfilling my father's dream of Bamidele. So came to Nigeria, we lived in Maryland, and we went to church in Yaba until the Maryland church was started with, by my father and some others. Maryland Seventh-day Adventist Church was started in the 70s, about 74, 75, thereabout, was when Maryland Church was started.
Okay, good to know. And so from your little narrative, I see that you were born a Seventh-day Adventist.
Yes.
You're born into the church.
Yes.
And you've always been in the church.
Yes.
Now, so your father was a missionary worker.
Yes.
As it were.
Yes.
And so moving, his experience as a missionary, how much of that impacted your life growing up?
My father was raised in Ibadan, Ikotedo, Ibadan. And he learned printing from Abeokuta and Alakisi Press in Abeokuta. But when he came to Ibadan, he got a job with the Advent Press in 1949. He started working in the Advent Press in Ibadan. And by 1952-53, the press was moved to Accra.
In Ghana?
In Ghana. So as a 23-year-old young man, he moved with the press to Accra, Ghana. And we were born there. My elder sister, myself, my siblings were born in Accra. So that experience of being able to move from one place to another, I got that from my father, because right now that's how the story of my life has turned out.
You're still moving.
Moving from one place to the other. So that's the legacy my dad, we lived in Ghana for 18 years. He lived in Ghana for 18 years. I was born in the middle of all of that. And that's been quite an experience growing up in two different places.
Okay. So now let's talk about your childhood dream growing up. Growing up, what was your dream? You wanted to be who, what?
Well, a lot of things, but I think by the time I finished high school and was trying to figure out what to do next, I ended up thinking about town planning, estate management, something that was practical, as far as I was concerned. So I was applying to different places for those courses. And I was not accepted. I didn't get admission for town planning or estate management at that time. So I was very discouraged, So I decided, well, I'll go and work. So I went to work in a bank. I worked at National Bank as a young clerk, National Bank, 1978, where I was earning money. I was earning a lot of money, man. I was earning 132 naira.
Naira.
Yeah.
Per month?
Per month.
Wow.
132 naira per month. That was my salary.
Okay, so now after all of these, you worked in the bank and then you decided to do what afterwards?
Well, after working in the bank, I discovered at some point that my academic aptitude was beginning to diminish, you know, because I was working as a young man. Okay. And so I registered at Baptist Academy in Lagos for my A-levels.
All right.
So I was taking my A-levels and my undergraduate, my O-level papers, I did them over again. So I had other courses that I didn't have before when I did my O-levels again. So with 1 year of A-levels and redoing my papers, I went to University of Ife at the time to study philosophy with the intention of, you know, continuing. Since I couldn't get estate management, I got something. Okay. So I applied with the intention that when I did that, I may be able to change to something else. But philosophy was what I was given, just like we always say in Nigeria. Okay. They gave me philosophy.
Okay. And so for 4 years you studied philosophy?
Yes.
And graduated?
Yes.
From University of Ife?
Mm-hmm.
So now, if you were to describe your Damascus experience, how would you, and when exactly did this play out?
Wow. You know, growing up as a young Seventh-day Adventist, I ended up going to Adventist Grammar School a day, okay, where we were, you know, indoctrinated, let me put it that way, in the ways of being a Seventh-day Adventist. Okay. You know, you have prayer in the morning, prayer at night, you have principles, midweek, everything. You were practically being, you know, raised to be Seventh-day Adventist. Unfortunately, I got the culture of the church, but the spirit of the church, or the spirit of Christ, you know, I did not get that impartation in high school. Okay. You know, I got the culture. I know the culture down. You know, I know Daniel 2, Daniel 7, everything. I could recite all of those things. So by the time I got to the University of Ife, I was a very good kid, you know, good boy, okay, publicly, in the public, but in private,
you were something else.
Something else.
Okay.
You know, I was something else. And so one of the times we came home from Ife, I came home on during my first year, okay, my first semester break. I came home and I called one of my friends. You know, we were in Maryland church. Said, hey, let's go for a ride to Aswa. It was Aswa then. Okay. What became
Adventist
Babcock
Seminary of West Africa.
Adventist Seminary of West Africa. Let's go for a spin to Aswa. So we left Maryland. We took the sister's car, you know, and started driving towards Shagamu from Lagos. He drove. My friend drove. My younger brother was in the back of the car. And we're going at 90 miles an hour.
Wow.
90 miles an hour. And when we got to where Redeemed Church is now, around that place, the church was not there. This was 1981. You know, nothing was happening in those areas. The tire tore. The back tire in the car tore out, just ripped. And so my friend became panicky, left the steering wheel and started shouting. So I was sitting in front with him and I held the steering wheel with, you know, one hand. And because of the force of holding it, the car veered off the road.
Wow.
And went into the brushes. Okay. Just kept going. And eventually stopped after spinning around. So I drove the car back to the road because he was too shaken to drive. I drove the car back to the road, and as I was changing the tire, I heard an audible voice speaking to me and said, Dele, I need your life. That was February 21, 1981.
You remember the date clearly?
It was a Saturday, February 21, 1981. Dele, I need your life.
And when you heard that, who did you think was speaking?
I knew it was God speaking. I've never heard it before, but I knew it was God.
And
it was very audible.
Okay, so and before now, did you ever have any impression in your mind you wanted to be a kind of worker for God?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That's another story. In 1979, my father's youngest brother, my father had two brothers. He was the eldest, and he had two younger brothers. 1979, October 20, my uncle came to our house in Maryland, and he said, I'm going to Ede, because his children were in Ede, Adventist Grammar School Ede, to visit the children after church, or actually during church they will leave so that they can meet them after they get out of church, spend some time with them, then come back. So, yeah, we saw him off to his car. He went. That afternoon, my younger brother came back to the house with my uncle's youngest son, Bayo, and he announced to us that uncle had an accident and he died in the accident.
Really?
Yeah. And that was a rude shock to me. So I took Bayo, my cousin. He was about a little over a year. Put him on my shoulder, and I went to the church crying. It was for evening service in Maryland. Pastor Sholademi, of blessed memories, was the pastor of the Maryland church at the time. And there and then, I went up and I said, if this is how horrible life is, my uncle was 43 at the time. If this is how life is, then I'm going to give my life to Christ and become a pastor. I said that October 20.
Okay. And you just said it?
I just said it. I said, I'm going to become a pastor. But I said it and I forgot about it.
That's interesting.
It's interesting.
And that was ever before you went to the university?
That was ever before I went to university.
So now at the university,
that was when I had the accident.
You went on this ride.
Yes.
And then you heard that voice and it said, Dele,
I need your life.
Yes. So did you connect what you
said
back then in church? You didn't.
I didn't. I didn't connect it. You know, in retrospect, now it's coming together. I didn't connect it. So I came back home. We drove the car back to Lagos. We didn't go to Aswa anymore. We just turned around, came back to Lagos. As we were trying to turn into Maryland, you know the compound, Maryland, the Union compound. Yeah. A car hit us from the back.
Another accident?
Yes, another accident. So the fender of the car dropped. And we dragged it into
the compound.
And the church had just finished. And everybody saw us. They saw our dilemma, you know. So when I got home, I told my mom the whole story. And my mom cried. But I thought it was funny, like, why is this woman crying? I heard a voice say, Dele, I need your life, and we was in an accident. You know, I was 19. So it was, for me, it was not a big deal. It was like
one of those things.
One of those things, whatever.
Yes, so he heard that voice, Dele, I need your life. And he did turn in his life. But how exactly and what happened, we'll be getting to talk about that when we come back after the break. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Damascus Encounter. On the program today, we have Dr. Israel Olaore, who is a pastor and a servant of God. He's shared with us how he encountered Jesus, and of course, he heard the voice audibly in his ears, Dele, I need your life. So, Pastor, tell me exactly how moving from philosophy, what you studied in the university, and becoming a pastor, that experience.
That is a follow-up from the fact that I said, God told me, Dele, I need your life.
Okay.
I went back to the university 3 weeks after my vacation. March 16, actually March 18 is a Wednesday. March 18, 1981, I was on the campus. We have a fellowship. So I went to the fellowship and I shared with them, praise God with me, oh, I had an accident, oh, and God saved me, oh. You know, I was just, I'm a comedian sometimes, you know. I was just, for me it was funny. And one of the ladies who was facilitating took that thing and broke it down. Like, Thank God he was not maimed. Thank God he didn't lose his eyes. It's like, come on, give me a break. By the time she was done, I was broken. Like, it's dawned on me all the ramifications of being saved.
Exactly.
So I now asked one of the older people, because I was a Jambite, first year, 100 level, what does this mean? He said, God wants to give you a new life. I said, but what does God want to do with a person like me? You know, at 19, I had girlfriends and all those things that boys, teenagers do. You know, I was doing all of that, you know, and I was not proud of myself. But so I didn't think God could use a person like me for anything. So he showed me a passage in Isaiah chapter 45, verse 23. I am he that blots out your transgressions for my own name's sake, and I'll forgive your sins and remember them no more. What do you mean, remember them no more? Say, yeah. God says he will not remember your sins. Say, can anybody forgive my sins and not remember again? Because for me, growing up, I grew up with this mental judgment, judgment mentality rather. Okay. If you sin, there is a consequence. Okay. Yeah, he will forgive you, but to say that you remember them no more, blew me out. I said, I want that. And the guy prayed with me. David is his name. David Arigbede. Prayed with me that night. And I submitted my life to Christ. And my life changed instantly. I kid you not. I know the before and after. And
you suddenly very interested in church,
spiritual
worship,
I was going to church, mind you. I was going to church. This was a fellowship, but my perception of God changed.
Okay.
My experience of who God was changed. I saw a loving God, caring God who accepted me for who I was. And I got a lot of mentors who mentored me and helped me grow. So by the time I finished 100 level and was getting to 200 level, God began to put things in my pathway. Somehow, he edged me into becoming the president of the fellowship.
Okay.
I became the president of the fellowship, and the person I married now was joining the fellowship at that time. Okay. And she became secretary of the fellowship, my wife. Okay. By the time I was in 300 level, going to 400 level, I became the president of the National Fellowship of Seventh-day Adventists. So God was arranging my life gradually. And Professor Babalola was observing all of this from the sideline. So by the time I was finishing my degree program, he said, you are going to serve your youth service with us at the conference as a conference worker.
There in Ibadan.
In Ibadan. So I accepted. I went to Ibadan, served as associate youth leader, as youth director or something like that, an evangelist. So I was doing crusades all over the place, Omoaron, Okela, and by the time I finished serving, and I thought I was going to go to UI to do a master's, he said, you are going to Aswa to do PGD. I said, I'm not going to Aswa. I said, you are going to Aswa. I said, I'm not.
So up till now, you didn't even think you would become a pastor, despite all
I wanted to become a lecturer, because I knew, but I wasn't this pastor part of it was not really focused. Okay. So he saw it. Professor Babalola saw it. He was the conference president at the time. He said, you are going to Aswa. I said, I'm not going to Aswa. He said, sit down there and pray. I said, what kind of thing is this? So I sat in his office and I prayed. By the time I was done, he said, tomorrow morning the driver is taking you to Aswa.
Just like that?
Just like that. So the following day, they bundled my load into the van. It was a Volkswagen van. And Baba Binuyo took me to Aswa and dropped me off for 1 year. By the time I was done, they baked me to becoming a pastor.
You were ready?
From philosophy to pastoral. I did 72 credits of pastoral classes beyond my philosophy degree. And that's it, man.
So looking back now, you've been a pastor for so many years?
37 years.
37 years, that's awesome. You were university pastor for Babcock University, where you pastored over 10,000 students. I want to share a little bit of your experience having to lead that team of students.
Well, that's an experience, and I thank God for what He chose to do with us at that time. I had a good team. You know, I had the likes of Pastor Debode Sawyer, Pastor Emmanuel George, we have Pastor Dixon, we had so many other seasoned pastors who were on the team. And God helped us to form what we call the Division of Spiritual Life, because it was just the pastor's office at the time. Yeah. But working together, we formed the Division of Spiritual Life, and we had people in charge of different things. And I think the sweetest part of it was knowing that we were making friends for Jesus, making these young people friends of Jesus. You know, sometimes we want to make them Seventh-day Adventists. Okay, and that's a bad idea. I don't think it's a good idea to want to make them into Seventh-day Adventists.
So you think we should first seek to make friends
of Jesus?
Make
them friends of Jesus. Let them love Jesus. Let them love Jesus. They're already in our environment. They're already going to church on Sabbath. They're already eating vegetarian. They're all those things. The cultural immersion is happening. So show them who Jesus is. Let them love Jesus. And all these other things will be added onto them.
So seek ye first to make friends with Jesus. And
all the Adventism will be added onto it.
Amazing.
You know, that's my philosophy. Because sometimes we get a situation where the students like our school for the education, but they don't like us as Christians.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's horrible. I don't want to have anything to do with your church, but I'm here for your education. And I think that's a miss. So we need an environment that nurtures them lovingly for Christ.
And when they love Jesus,
they
will do everything for Jesus. That's amazing. So wonderful experience, I would say, you've had and shared. Today you are still pastor,
yes,
but then you are principal of the Glendale Adventist Academy in California.
Yes.
So what exactly is your experience?
It's expanding my pastoral ministry in education. Okay. You know, I was invited to be principal. I was on vacation with my son when I was called by the superintendent. He said, "Are you in Africa or in the US?" I said, "I'm here in your backyard. Could you see me?" I said, "Sure." I went there, said, "Look, we got a problem. This is July. We have a school and we need a principal. Can you do it?" I said, "I've only done university. I've not done high school." He said, "You can do it. You have a PhD in education." I said, "Come on, people." He said, "Let the personnel committee decide that." And I went to personnel committee and they said, "Yeah, from talking to you, we think you can do it. Can you start on Tuesday?" This was Monday. They said, "Can you start tomorrow?" I said,
"Just
people,
like that.
I'm on vacation." I said, "Please." And I started, and the rest is history. But the good thing about what I'm doing is pastoring students from kindergarten to 12th grade. That is from age 5 to age 18. That's the range.
All right.
We have currently about 313 students. Before COVID, we had 436, but some of them, stayed home. But we are getting all of them back. All of them are coming back by the grace of God. So pastoring the students, pastoring their parents, because that's part of it. You're ministering to parents, and then pastoring teachers. So I have a community that is multiply 400 students by at least 3 other people. Their parents. Their siblings, all of those people. I see them as my church, as the church that I'm ministering to. So it's challenging, extremely challenging, cultural shift, but it's extremely rewarding as well. That's what I'm thinking.
I guess it has to be rewarding.
Yes.
Now, looking very briefly before we round up, as you must have had dreams. You have kids and what you wanted your kids to. So how are they doing and what they are doing right now? How do you feel about your children and what they're doing right now?
Well, you see, sometimes a parent who is in a particular profession will like his children to be in that same profession.
Exactly.
I have those dreams. But I've discovered that to let my children express themselves and be themselves. My eldest son, to the glory of God, just got promoted to become a director of leadership residency for the Adventist health system in California. Okay, Tim. And he's very excited. If you Google him, Mr. Meaningful Work, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, in Facebook, Mr. Meaningful Work. Just that's one hashtag. You'll find Timothy Olaore. My second son is a specialist in recruiting talent, executive talent for a hospital system, Common Spirit. So Ife, and is also a real estate developer. He buys and does real estate. My third son is a digital marketing executive for an advertising firm. Okay. He studied public relations in Israel, my namesake. Then my fourth son is going to film. He wants to be a film director. So he's going to be starting this coming, he just finished high school, so he's going to be starting university in this August. So I'm excited. They're all fulfilled in what they have been called to do.
And they all have the tendency to somehow find themselves do ministry kind of in what they are doing right now. And that's very exciting.
That's what exciting.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing your story, and thank you for being with us on Damascus Encounter today. It's been a wonderful time sharing with Dr. Israel Olaore on the Damascus Encounter, who has shared with us hearing God's voice daily. I need your life, to him becoming a pastor and then becoming principal of the Glendale Adventist Academy in California. And we've had a nice time sitting with him, sharing with him on the program today. That's what we'll be having on the program. Same time next week, we'll be back with another edition of the Damascus Encounter. And until then, I want to say have a beautiful time and God bless.